said
Okay.
he gave two examples. One is that you, after you became representative, started wearing white or black. Those are the only two colors that you wear. And he said there was a time you were talking about both of you reconciling, and he says that the imam, he told the imam to tell you to first of all wear different color clothes for 3 months. He says you are not able to do that because that was a mandate given you by your ritualist laws, allegedly. And two, and so answer that one first before I bring the next one.
Okay, so basically, let me talk to him today for the first time to give him that peace that he wants. But what I would say to Fubi Henry, the grace that I carrying and the anointing that is upon my head, I know it is too much. He does not expect, somebody who struggle, coming from nowhere with a struggling background, for God to bless you in this kind of way. He has not seen that, Fubi Hendricks grew up in a home where, they had his grandfather was once a speaker, the kind of way they lived their life, the kind of things they did. So he believed in your mind. For somebody from nowhere to come to this kind of position, you must have done something else to get to this position. But I understand that I serve the Holy Trinity God. I have never in my life, and I have made this promise as always. Everywhere I ever went, every church I ever entered, I have made this commitment to God. The day I serve another God, Osa, the Holy Trinity God, God will strike me dead. So again, I understand that my grace is too much for him. I know.
No, but the man says he is also a Christian, and he prays and he gets these intuitions and all of that.
I'm not accusing him of not being a Christian. I'm not accusing him of going anywhere. What I'm saying, I'm talking about what I know about myself. So
Thanks.
nothing upon.
Thanks. Welcome. This is the OK Conversation on OKFM 99.5. At 5 p.m. we'll have a team from DSTV here. At 4 p.m. is Forest Tower. 3:15 shortly, Dr. Roptel Nije Pele will be here with us. Taking her away from a very busy schedule. Once she's in Liberia, we always try to lay our hands on her and bring her in. A whole lot of things are happening, but it is what it is right here. Some group of Liberians want to protest on tomorrow. Their publicity vehicle was impounded. Police say it was defective. Quite an interesting take on that, right? Then what? They say what? They arrested people with petrol bombs today. And they said they are protesters. How they got to know the people are protesters? So, look, let's just leave it, man. All kinds of things can happen in this country. So the person going to protest tomorrow. They start passing around with petrol bomb from yesterday and today. So you going to protest, then you'll be passing around, but then the rest with petrol bomb. Things can happen. But that's what it looks like. As much as I don't want to say it, but that's it. Argentina beat England last night. So since when I support anybody, they can go. I will support Argentina in the final. Yeah, I will support them. Maybe mission will then be accomplished. But I mean, it seems there's a jinx on me. This other World Cup, no, it seems there's a jinx. So let me see. I will support Argentina. Yeah. I supported France over Spain. Spain won. I supported England over Argentina. Argentina won. So I don't like Spain. I don't like Argentina, but I really do not like Argentina at all. For me, they're very racist. That's one of the key reasons I just don't like them. Every year they've been treating black people in their country for a very long time since I started following football as a child. I have not seen black player on Argentina team. Yeah. Then the way they can treat black people. That's my main reason for being, apart from the fact that, the Messi and Ronaldo thing. Yeah, Messi is a very good player. I still feel CR7 is the greatest of all time. Yep. That's it. But the point I'm making is one of the reasons I just don't like that Argentina team. That's it. That's the racism from that country. That's all. So I don't like them at all. I can tolerate Spain. I can tolerate Spain. So since I can tolerate Spain, and I don't like Argentina, I will support Argentina because I support anybody they can lose. You understand? I will stop it right there. And if you can't stay, like I always say, I just do this football thing for entertainment, for fun. The way you can take it serious and be acting. No, they think I do it for fun, my people. Since Chelsea make it, I couldn't eat. Something like Champions League semi-final Liverpool, was it 2009 or 2010? One of those years. Yeah, instead of me eating my food, we're going to watch a semi-final that night. I say, let me go come back. Liverpool beat us 1-0. Chelsea that time, Chelsea.
That real 5 and 6, so.
EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Your cars, generators, and other machines can last much longer when you use the right kind of petroleum products to power your engines. Sunek Group, located on Bushwood Island, is dealer and distributor of high-quality petroleum products across Liberia at available prices. At Sunek Group, we sell and distribute high-quality petrol, gas, and diesel fuel to fueling stations across the nation. Our highly trained, professional, and customer-friendly staff are always waiting and ready to serve you. We deliver your petroleum products to your destinations on time. No worries. Power your engines with the right kinds of petrol, oil, and gas today and save time and money. Come to Sunek Group, your one-stop distributor of high-quality petrol, oil, and gas. We are located in a BMC building opposite UBA Bank, just a block away from LPRC on Bushwood Island. For more information, call 0777-062-441 or 0886-473-164. Sunek Group, spinning the wheels of oil and gas in Africa.
Welcome back. Like we said, all kinds of things are happening. Executive Mansion issued a statement and definitely denying the report that this quote-unquote intelligence report on narcotics and other things was submitted to the office of the president and all of that. I know next week we will explore all of those. But from the fingers of the Director General of NAFA, that's the National Aquaculture and Fisheries Authority, Cyrus Sigbe, he has written this: yes, come with your coolers and shopping for the Independence Day, from the ocean to your plates. Why you should eat more fish? 1, excellent source of high quality protein. 2, protects your heart. 3, boosts brain function. 4, supports healthy growth in children. 5, improves eye health. 6, strengthens the immune system. 7, builds strong bones. 8, supports maternal and child health. 9, helps maintain a healthy weight. 10, supports healthy skin and hair. 11, good for people living with diabetes. 12, provides essential nutrients. Eat fish, live healthy. Fish is nature's superfood, rich in protein, packed with omega-3 and loaded with vitamins that nourish the body, strengthen the heart, sharpen the mind, and build a healthier future for you and your family. Why is he saying this? Because during the 179th Independence Day celebration, supposedly to take place in Buchanan, Grand Bassa County, NAFA's Independence Day Fisheries Fiesta will be taking place. They have what they call the Fish Market Day happening where? At the fairgrounds in Buchanan on the 25th of July, beginning 9 a.m. The President of the Republic of Liberia is expected to officially open this quarter's Fish Market Day. So when you use Orange Money, you get instant 10% discount on every purchase. And so come and enjoy fresh fish, lobster, crab, and much more. Prices will range from 5 USD to 50 USD. And make sure you're there in Grand Bassa. Buy all you can, eat all you can. It is an independence bonanza for you, the 25th in Buchanan, Grand Bassa County. That is how it is. Okay. Yep. We have with us Dr. Raptel Nije Pele. Welcome, Doc.
Thank you for having me, Julius.
How is life?
Life is good. Last time I complained, I decided I wasn't going to complain this time around. In Gaza in terms of the genocide, but I'm not going to talk about that now.
But it is still ongoing.
It is ongoing,
Ukraine,
unfortunately.
Iran has added to that as well.
So it's become even more intense in terms of crises across the globe.
What's the mission in Liberia this time around?
So what am I doing in Liberia? A number of things. So I initially came for this month to engage in what I'm calling legislative dialogues with members of the House as well as Senate. Some of you may have heard that I did present findings or preliminary findings from my current book project on Liberia's Negro Clause and Sierra Leone's Negro Clause. So I'm doing that this month, just engaging with members of the House and the Senate on the new book. On my previous book that was published in 2021 on dual citizenship, and that particular course is a Monrovia Intercollegiate Seminar short course, and it comprises 4 different universities: the University of Liberia, Stella Marie Polytechnic, UMU, United Methodist University, and AMEU. And we meet at a different university each week, and we just discuss the different chapters of the book.
Who the we?
Oh, the students. So about 50 plus students applied for this short course. I shortlisted 26 students. Usually I have a cap of 20, but there were such stellar applications this year that I had to include 6 additional students. So it's students from these 4 universities who are represented. In addition, I'm going to be giving a public lecture at the University of Liberia on the 26th of August. And the public lecture focuses on South-South Development Cooperation. So one of the questions, so fists up in the air, or can we consider it self-interested neocolonialism? That's the question that I'm going to be answering in the lecture.
So that means you'll be here until August?
I'm here until the end of August, yes.
Okay.
Yes, last plug.
I am asking because you teach in the UK.
I do teach in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Schools are closed on that side?
Yes, okay. Yes. So we resume at the LSE at the end of September. Okay,
I think all of them in the UK is around that same time.
Yeah, late September, early October.
Yeah.
So yes. My last plug is I will be on a panel this evening for a film called Overburden. And it's a film that was produced in conjunction with the EPA of Liberia, and it focuses on nature conservation in Nimba. So it's open to the public. It's at Bella Casa Hotel. The screening is from 5 to 6:30, and then there's going to be a panel of experts responding to the film. So I encourage people to attend.
Okay, is it that you were invited by the House of Representatives, or you wrote them to speak to them? Which one?
I wrote them. I wrote them because I was hearing a lot of murmuring about the Negro Clause. I think President Sirleaf had presented to a joint member of both the House and the Senate a number of months ago. And I was concerned about some of the reportage coming out of that legislative session with her. And so I'd been working on this book for over 8 years. The last time I think I was even here in 2021 to tell you about the beginning of the data collection, and now I'm far gone in the data collection, almost done, and I'll be moving into analysis and writing very, very soon. So essentially, I'd heard about all of the rumblings around President Sirleaf's presentation to the House, and I really wanted to present both the House and the Senate with evidence, an evidence base for policymaking, right? Rather than them responding to sentiments, I wanted to give them evidence data that I'd collected to really inform their policymaking, to really inform their deliberations before they make decisions on this Negro clause that I think might be irreversible. So I wrote a letter to them saying that I would be in town in July and that I would like to present my preliminary findings for this book. The book is entitled Africa's Negro Republics, How Race, Citizenship, and Migration Impact Socioeconomic Development in Liberia and Sierra Leone. So it's a comparison of Liberia and Sierra Leone's Negro clauses. And when I sent the letter, initially it was really for me to engage in focus group discussions with the members of the House and focus group discussions with the members of the Senate. But I'm told that the leadership of the House met and they decided, rather than me doing focus group discussions in July, which would be really difficult because July is such a jam-packed month, that it would be better for me to come and present to the plenary. And for me, that was ideal because then it meant less logistical planning on my part to present to the entire House, made the most sense to me. So I then accepted their invitation. So I wrote to present in terms of engaging in focus group discussions, and then they invited me to actually present to the entire plenary.
And you were greeted with some controversy. Others walked out on you.
I don't want to give that too much attention because at the end of the day, the people who stayed listened attentively. There are a number of members of the House who stayed and listened attentively. The people who walked out, I'm not particularly concerned about why they walked out because at the end of the day, it was a disservice to their constituents because I came to provide knowledge. I came to share my knowledge with them about a very, very consequential element of our citizenship law, element of our Constitution. So if they decided to walk out, then that's really for you to ask them why. But I'm not particularly I wasn't rattled, I wasn't concerned, I just took it all in stride. And if you listen to the video, you watch the video, you notice that I wasn't frazzled at all. I just kept presenting.
That was the second time you were walked out upon.
And I would say that that has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the people who walked out. So if people decide that they don't want to hear what I have to say, it's not going to stop me from speaking truth to power. And what I want to say kind of categorically to you and your audience is that at the end of the day, Julius, I've been speaking to truth to power since I was probably in my early adolescence, right? And speaking truth to power comes with not only responsibility, but people who are in positions of power will not necessarily agree with what you have to say. But I have such a conviction about Liberia, I have such a vision for this country's transformation that regardless of whether or not power wants to hear what I have to say, I'm going to continue to speak truth to power. Because as far as my research, whether it's my public scholarship, whether it's the evidence base that I bring to the policymaking process, is one that is meant to ultimately transform this country for the better. So those who are in support of me, I say thank you.
Okay, great. Now, coming to the main thing, the issues you discussed.
Great.
At the
I'm
House.
glad that we're going to talk about the substance.
We just need to clear some of those out.
Sure. No problem.
What are some of the key areas that you pointed out to them?
Sure. So I basically started off by saying why this research is really important. And the reason I would say the research is really important is because if you think about Blackness and citizenship, there's very, very little research on Blackness and citizenship, right? If you think about the Negro Clause effectively centers Black citizenship in a way that no other scholarship does. Also, there is very, very little scholarship on how race functions within the context of West Africa. So I was providing that kind of basis for an entry point for thinking about why the research is important. The other thing that I mentioned during the House is I had four primary research questions in this comparative analysis between Liberia and Sierra Leone. So the first research question is, why were these Negro clauses even instituted? Why were they introduced, right? I talked to them about the historical trajectory of the Negro Clause in Liberia, and I said, in 1847, when these Black migrant settlers came from the United States, from the Congo River Basin, from the Caribbean, they effectively wanted to embed in our Constitution and our citizenship law a provision that basically would enable them to control the means of production, i.e. land, would enable them to control capital, would enable them to effectively be in a space where they could be free black people. The Negro Clause is sort of not really evolved in Liberia. It was maintained in the 1986 Constitution. It was maintained in the 1973 Aliens and Nationality Law, and even maintained in the 2022 Dual Citizenship Law that actually my research contributed to the passage, right? So that's Liberia. If you look at Sierra Leone, in terms of the evolution of the Negro Clause in Sierra Leone, it's very interesting because the Negro Clause was introduced in Sierra Leone in 1962 in its Citizenship and Nationality Law. Sierra Leone borrowed the Negro Clause from Liberia, right? Mm-hmm. And in 1962, they established a citizenship between 1967 and 1979. An interesting case came before the Sierra Leonean Supreme Court. There was a guy by the name of John Joseph Akar of Middle Eastern descent. I think his father was Lebanese. And he challenged the constitutionality of this Negro African clause in the Citizenship Act of Sierra Leone. And the reason he did it is because the clause was being used as a basis for barring him from running for political office. And Shaka Stevens felt like this guy, he was threatened by this guy, John Akar. John Akar took the case to the Supreme Court. He won. The case was eventually overturned when the Attorney General of Sierra Leone brought the case. John Akar then took the case all the way to the Privy Council in the UK, where I live, and he won. But the Negro African Clause was never overturned officially because, again, there was all this concern about John Akar having so much clout and influence. Then Sierra Leone passes a dual citizenship law in 2006 that opens up the citizenship architecture of the country. So at the moment, because of that dual citizenship law in 2006, people of Negro African descent can naturalize, but they can't obtain citizenship by birth. So if you can even pinpoint the difference between Liberia and Sierra Leone. So Liberia says people of Negro African descent, they can't naturalize, they can't obtain citizenship by birth. So it's very closed. Sierra Leone says, okay, you can't obtain citizenship by birth, but you can naturalize at the age of majority. But by virtue of that naturalization, they're not entitled to run for political office. So they can't run for the parliament and they can't run for the presidency and the vice presidency. So I share that kind of historical trajectory to say that these clauses didn't just come out of a vacuum, right? They have a particular foundation. The second research question that I have is, then why have the clauses endured, right? Why have they been maintained? A little bit refined in the Sierra Leone case, but very, very much since 1847, we've had a Negro Clause in Liberia that has never changed. And so my response to that is, one of my findings is, it's because of inequalities, right? So inequalities that are born from slavery, from colonialism, from capitalism, and from neoliberal capitalism. And when I say slavery, what I mean is, as I mentioned earlier, these black migrants in both contexts were coming from spaces and places where they felt economic inequality, they felt a sense of racial discrimination. And in terms of colonialism, they were fighting colonial encroachment in the context of Sierra Leone from the British and the French and also Liberia. A lot of people don't realize that the territory that we call Liberia today is much smaller than the original territories. The French and British were carving out West Africa, and they took a lot of our territory away. So they were responding to encroachment from colonial forces. In terms of capitalism, these black migrant settlers and their descendants were also fearful that the uneven or unequal incorporation into global capitalism created fears around how do we compete in an inherently unequal system, right? And then last but certainly not least, I talked about this idea of neoliberal capitalism. So a lot of protections that we think about as citizens are being whittled away because our governments are having to respond to the dictates of the World Bank and the IMF that effectively state you have to liberalize, you have to privatize, you have to deregulate. And those protections that we find important in terms of states providing protections are being rolled back because the regulatory function of the state is being rolled back. So neoliberal capitalism is a form of inequality that has enabled these Negro clauses to endure. So it's slavery, it's colonialism, it's capitalism, and it's neoliberalism. The second finding that I have, there are three major findings that I presented to the House, and hopefully I'll do to the Senate as well. Middle Eastern as well as Asian migrants who've come to Liberia and Sierra Leone since the mid-20th century. And in that period of Lebanese, for instance, Indians as well as Chinese settling in Liberia and Sierra Leone, they've been able to maintain a stronghold in everything from the service sector to the retail sector to the agriculture sector to the mining sector. And this has created real fear, real anxiety amongst Liberians and Sierra Leoneans about the fact that people of non-Negro descent have a strong influence in the economic livelihood of the countries, right? They have a strong outsized influence in the economic life of the country. The third finding that I presented to the House was at the end of the day, if you compare and contrast Liberia and Sierra Leone, there's a fundamental difference that I've discovered in the research that I've collected. In Sierra Leone, the major fear around removing the Negro clause is really about the fear of opening up the clause in such a way that people of non-Negro descent will have extended political rights. People in Sierra Leone that I've interviewed, the vast majority of them, they're outliers of course, the vast majority of them are concerned that if you remove the Negro clause, people of non-Negro descent who have an outsized influence in the economic life of the state will then infiltrate the political life of the state, right? They'll be able to run for parliament. They'll be able to run for the presidency and the vice presidency. So that's where the major concerns are in Sierra Leone. In Liberia, on the other hand, the major concerns are around land ownership, right? So there's a quote that kept coming up over and over again amongst my interviewees, and these were policymakers, these were ordinary citizens. All the Asians will buy the land. And when they mean Asians, what they mean are the Lebanese, right? All the Lebanese people will buy the land. And so one of the things that I talked about is the fact that in order for us to deal with, my recommendation to the House was,
sure,
if you're going...
that is the next point I was going to.
So that's the difference in terms of the findings. So the fear in Sierra Leone is about political rights. The fear in Liberia is around land rights ownership.
So after presenting your findings, the different arguments for and against and all of that, what were your recommendations to the House?
So my main recommendation, because the research is ongoing, right? So I've collected archival data. I've done all these interviews, about 250 interviews. And then I'm doing these legislative dialogues. So my major recommendation based on the findings to date, because it's evolving, is that you have to make sure that you deal with the land ownership issue. In Sierra Leone, it was political protectionism, but in the context of Liberia is how do you deal with the, I would say, legitimate fears that people have about land ownership being extended to people of non-Negro descent. And the reason I think that's important is if you look at the Land Rights Act of 2018, that Land Rights Act is probably one of the most liberal land rights acts. It's very, very progressive if you read it from beginning until end. The challenge is implementation. So if we can't even get the Land Rights Act right, in terms of its implementation, then how do we deal with extending our citizenship architecture in such a way that those who might be entitled to citizenship in the future, i.e. people of non-Negro descent, there's some guardrails around their land ownership. The other thing that I talked a lot about is that it's important for us to remember that land ownership and citizenship are inextricably tied. You can't own land unless you are a citizen. I also talked about the fact that there is a scholar by the name of Karen Brotkin who came up with this really interesting way of looking at race, right? And she says that if we think about, and this is the analysis that I use, is political economy analysis, and I find it to be really, really useful when we're thinking about why are people so concerned about land ownership rights being extended to people of non-Negro descent. Karen Brotkin says, yes, we can think about race as a social construct, right? That's what sociologists call it. Sociologists also call race a form of social ordering. But she said, if we think about race as a relationship to the means of production, that's a more interesting, that's a more useful way of thinking about race. And I apply this because what I'm saying is the reason Liberians have this visceral fear around extending land ownership rights to people of non-Negro descent is they want to control the means of production, right? They want to be able to control not only capital, but the means of production.
Even though a whole lot of them may not have the financial wherewithal.
So you're heading where I was heading. So one of the questions that I have is, the third kind of research question that I have is this clause racist and protectionist? So one of the arguments that kept coming up is, oh, the clauses are racist. But the question that I'm asking, and I'm interrogating the protectionist argument because I think fundamentally the clauses really just protect the interests of a small group of elite people. And those are landed people who have access to be able to buy land in the case of Liberia. And in terms of Sierra Leone, those who are in political office, they want to hold on. It protects their specific interests because they don't want to see people of non-Negro descent running for MP, running for the House. I mean, running for the presidency or the vice presidency. So the pushback that I'm kind of interrogating in my research is, are these clauses really protectionist? And if they're protectionist, whose interests do they protect? And my hypothesis is the Negro clauses really protect the interests of a very, very small group of people, group of political elites as well as economic elites.
If we were to reverse that, for example, in an American or a British constitution, and say that only people of white descent can be citizens, that would be termed as racist.
It
right?
would be termed as racist if you understand race through the sociological perspective, right? So there's a whole thesis that says black people can't be racist because they do not control the means of production, even in their own country. So, for instance, Liberia, right? So white people, for instance, in the context of the UK, in the context of the United States, do control the means of production. So if there were a law introduced that said only white people can own land or only white people can be citizens, you could make the argument that that's more racist than a predominantly black country where even black people don't control the means of production. That's why I find Karen Brodkin's analysis to be so interesting, because it moves beyond, it moves race from just kind of the social construct of race as this social ordering. It talks about, okay, so fine, black people are the majority in Liberia, but do they actually control the means of production? Do they actually control the economic makeup of the country? And the answer is, I think we can say categorically, no, right? So the other thing that I'm doing in terms of the research is also challenging the racist argument. I'm challenging the protectionist argument, and I'm also challenging the racist argument, because I think the racist argument is overly simplistic, especially if you think about race as beyond a social construct. If you think about race as this idea of the relationship to the means of production. So race is a relationship to the means of production. Let me give you an example to make it a little bit more concrete. So Brodkin's work focuses on the Jewish populations. And what she does is she traces Jews who've left Europe and moved to the United States. And what she argues is so interesting, her research. She argues that Jewish people became whiter and whiter and whiter and whiter as they started to control the means of production. So lost control to the means of production because of dispossession, vast levels of dispossession in the United States. So what I want to say to Liberians is we can't compare apples and oranges. We have to compare apples and apples, and we have to compare oranges and oranges. If you ask that question, who controls the means of production? Usually it's the people who control the means of production who are at the very, very top of the hierarchy. And across the globe, it's white people, no matter where you are. Across the globe. So
that kind of intersectionality, there is a possibility too that in a country like ours, once we start to have the means of
control over the means of production
and everything else, it could amount to racism.
I would say if Liberians control the means of production, you could use the racism argument a little bit more convincingly for me.
Okay. Now,
based on Karen Brodkin's analysis, and that's what I subscribe to, because she's a political economist, and I'm also a political economist.
Since you are still here, we could find another time perhaps on our television. There's a whole lot to explore. Sure. But you also wrote an article on the 2023 elections.
Oh yeah,
you want to talk about that?
I did. Sure. This article is a long time coming. So it's an article called Liberia's Electoral Exceptionalism as Democratic Consolidation. And I have a co-author, David Lewis, who co-authored the article with me. And it's based on interviews that we did with four then opposition political party members. So Joseph Boakai, Alexander Cummings, Tia Wangonglo, and Clarence Monuba, who were in the opposition when we interviewed them in July 2023. And the basic argument that we're making in this article, and the reason we wrote this article, is because if you read the kind of scholarly literature on democratic consolidation or political party consolidation in Africa, it's often very pathological. So basically the literature says, oh, what's happening in the continent of Africa, because it's not modeled after what's happening in Euro-America, doesn't look like what's happening in Euro-America. There's something fundamentally pathological about what's happening in the continent of Africa. And we say no, we actually challenge the literature on the kind of mainstream literature on democratic consolidation. And we say that literature is based on a Euro-American kind of mystique. But we have to meet Africa where it is. It has a completely different historical trajectory. Even the countries in Africa have different historic, kind of political trajectories. And so what we do is we look at Liberia as a really unique case to say there's something really exceptional about Liberia, right? If you look at the pre-war elections in Liberia, the pre-war elections were, marred by incumbency advantage, patronage, fraud, I mean, you name it, all the pathological kind of tendencies that much of the scholarly literature talks about when they talk about Africa. But if you look at Liberia's post-war trajectory, there's actually some really, really interesting, we'd say positive, exceptional things that are happening. So for instance, in the past, there is no way you would have had something like George Weah conceding defeat before the NEC actually officially announced its results. Mm-hmm. In the past, incumbency advantage was the norm, meaning incumbents always won. Mm-hmm. Now you have a post-war moment where not only does an incumbent concede defeat, but he steps away, he steps down. This is a function of Liberia's in the context of West Africa, is that there's a lot of competition in Liberia in the post-war elections, competition that's never existed before. I mean, I don't know how many candidates we have, like thousands of candidates for both the House and the Senate. And even the presidency, we have up to 20-some candidates. If you compare that to Euro-America, it's very rare to have those many candidates for any particular electoral election, right? So we say there's a lot of competition post-war. There's also a lot of party fragmentation. And what we mean by party fragmentation is Liberians do not vote based on parties. They vote based on what we call constituency service. So it's, right? And from electoral cycle to electoral cycle, you see, especially in the House and the Senate, there's there's like a churn where you're voted one year and then they vote you out another year. So, you know, a lot of people say, oh, Liberians, they just vote based on ethnicity. That's not what's happening. It really is based on constituency service. If they see that you're not providing public goods from one electoral cycle to another, you're gone. And that's happened across the different elections from 2011 until present, where you've had this kind of the overturn of electoral positions in the House and the Senate.
So this level of democratic exceptionalism, how can it translate into strengthening, enhancing our burgeoning democracy so that we don't have a rollback?
It's a really good question. And
more so post-electoral times.
Sure, it's a really good question. So yeah, so we talked about the competition, the heightened competition. If you compare it to other countries in Africa, in West Africa, it's not the case. And then one of the examples that we give about the competition is you have in Liberia, in the House and the Senate, a high number of independents, right? So we're not voting based on party. We're voting based on constituency service. So it's competition, it's fragmentation, and then it's representation. Representation meaning you've got representation of parties across the board, right? There's no one party that dominates the House and the Senate. In fact, there's no majority party in the House or the Senate. If you look at the actual stats, right? That's what makes Liberia exceptional. One of the things that my co-author and I talk about is elections do not make democracy. So democracy, what the literature says, is vertical accountability between the elected and the electorate is just one part of democracy. So elections are just one part of democracy. You also have to have what they call horizontal accountability. So does the House and the Senate, the legislature as it were, provide their oversight function? Do they check and balance the executive? That's what we're missing. Mm-hmm. In the same way that the judiciary is supposed to check and balance the legislature. That's what we're missing. So we have the vertical accountability where the electorate decides every electoral cycle, we don't want you because you're not providing public goods.
There are constitutional guidelines and strictures in place to ensure that those things happen. Is it that
it's not being implemented?
Yeah, is it a lack of willpower or is it a lack of understanding? Because sometimes when the legislature tries to do that, it is seen as interfering with the executive.
So that's the problem, right? So if there are no checks and balances, then you don't have horizontal accountability. And scholars have said that that is Liberia's weakness, that it has vertical accountability, but it doesn't have horizontal accountability. So what we need to work on, and this is one of the things that we say in the articles, we need to work on fixing our horizontal accountability. So when we elect these people in the legislature and in the executive, they must be able to check each other's power. And in the absence of that, we can have elections until the cows come home. It means nothing if you're choosing your representative or your president if they don't check each other's power. So I agree with you.
That will mean strengthening institutions and
100%.
And then ensuring that they are playing the role they're supposed to.
100%. So that's where horizontal accountability comes in, is do people who are elected understand their function? Do people in the House and the Senate understand that their function is to make laws, hopefully laws that are transformative for the vast majority of citizens, and their other function is oversight. So in the absence of that oversight, you just have a bunch of yes men and yes women in the House and the Senate. And this is where we've strayed. This is what we haven't made any like real strides in. Because there have been cases where you've had a House where they've changed the leadership because the leadership is not aligned with the executive. That is really problematic. We have to figure out a way to elect people in the House and the Senate who will make sure that they are functioning in terms of their oversight. Because in the absence of oversight, just making laws is insufficient.
Her name is Dr. Robtel Pele. We will have to bring her back for like an hour, 30 minutes or 2 hours. There's a whole lot to unpack. A whole lot of you may like to engage with her on the show and all that, but we'll find the most appropriate time. Let's take few calls, just few, because 4 o'clock is first hour. So let's take few calls. 777-700-995, 555-995-995. The numbers to call, and you will be through. Today's the birthday of the superintendent of Nimba County. Call me up, Gono. Happy birthday to you, madam. Welcome. Let's hear you. What's your name?
Good afternoon, Julius.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Dawuda, but I'm calling from Looking Town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Julius, is this the young girl that the United Party guys refer to as Frisky little girl?
Yes.
But I think contrary to what you say, I'm listening to a brilliant Liberian woman speaking. So my only issue, I have a slight disagreement with her on the issues that have to do with racism. You know, the way she see it.
The way she sees what?
The way she see and define racism when you're talking about racism.
Okay.
So yeah, so my only issue here is I think we black we are more racist than the West.
What she's saying in the view of a whole lot of scholars, if you do not control the economy, you don't control how things happen in a country, you really cannot be racist.
That is my disagreement, right?
Okay.
So it's on a perspective of the economy. But my thing is, in our law, we the black, in our law, you will see it's very clear that we discriminate the white.
So when you say white person cannot be citizen in your country, how does it affect the livelihood and everything else of the white person?
The reason is that because most of them want to establish in our country and work and do businesses in our country. But
it doesn't stop them, does it?
No, but they are portioning the law that have limitation on them. They are involvement with it.
Okay, great. No, you just jot it down. I will come back because we don't have enough time. Let's take a few more calls. Welcome. Let's hear you quickly.
Yeah, Julius, this is Brown Tate from Monrovia.
Mm-hmm.
And you said Dr. Pele, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think she was the Independence
Day. Yeah, the Independence Day orator and all that.
Yeah. Let me thank you, madam. You even though, other people would differ with you, but let me begin from that question you were asking the man. If you don't control the economy, how can you say you will be xenophobic or those kind of thing? Because you don't control the economy. So the people there doing their things. Even most of the government transactions, who are they transacting with? That is the Lebanese and Indians. I think you hosted Simon Fremont, I think yesterday, something like that, where you have stationary vehicles and other things. Who are they getting it from? That is still very white people. So if we think that these people cannot be citizens, and then they repatriate their earnings, who benefit? You don't benefit. See, now, even in the southeast and other parts of the country, the land right she was talking about, most of our foreigners have been leased to Burkina Faso. So when they make the money, and tomorrow they sell their cocoa, where they carry it? They carry it to Burkina Faso.
Okay, thanks so kindly. Let's hold you there, sir. Let's bring a few more in quickly. Welcome, let's hear you.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Stephen P. Willie. I represent the Concerned Librarian for Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I like your studio guest for bravery and everything she does for intellect. But my concern is this. Some of us are afraid of horns. we want to be like Dr. Rotel Paley. We don't just want Dr. Rotel Paley to be in UK. There is not another version in Latvia or elsewhere. So what is she doing to incorporate us that there will be more people who are willing to stick to power? That's my concern.
Okay, thanks so kindly. Let's go to Paris, France. Welcome. Let's hear you.
Good afternoon, Julius, and good afternoon to your studio girlfriend Gibson. You know, if you look at the Constitutional Library of Party, according to the word of George Weah, that constitutional essay is racist. Julius, in the Western world, you black men, you white men, once you qualify for a position, you can run for that position and be somebody in the legislature or any other position. Like you look at the mayor of London, he from immigrant descent. Now, Liberia, like Senator Dida was saying, once you are not born in Liberia, you cannot run for opposition. That racist statement. Senator Dida himself knows that.
Okay, thanks. So kindly. We'll hold you right there because of time. Let's go back to her. There really seems to be some issues around racism.
And that is fine. I would say that you could say that the clause is discriminatory, right? Say that the clause is discriminatory, right? I think you can make that argument, but I don't think you can make the argument that the clause is racist. And I'm going to stick with that. The other question somebody asked is, how do we replicate Robtel Paley's around Liberia? Honestly, my advice to people is just to study. Like, take your study seriously, because that's what's going to get you from point A to point B. I come back every summer to engage with young people. I've done it at the University of Liberia, at various universities. And I'm very, very interested in young people who want to move beyond the kind of confines of what Liberia has to offer. So it is possible. I would say that you just need to work really, really hard. And that's essentially the foundation of why I am where I am today.
Her name is Dr. Robtel Nije Paley. My name is Julius J. I'll be back 5 o'clock. Next up is Forest Hour. We were trying to bring her here on a longer edition, so we talk about everything.
To ensure forest communities engage, monitor, and advocate for their just benefits, the Liberia